on the road, running errands and doing all sorts of stuff. And we are doing a quick live stream. I was hoping to be home by now, but I am not. It's about 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I am doing a live stream lecture on the origins of armistice, a Veterans Day, which is celebrated in the United States on November 11th. So tomorrow, it's very popular, usually a 3-day weekend kind of environment going on there. So I'm doing a quick live stream about that. And while I'm on the road, I stepped outside, I'm running errands. I thought I'd be home by now, but I am not. So figured a nice outdoor live stream would be nice for everybody. And I'll take the next few minutes and explain a little bit about, I was hoping to do an hour. I was hoping to be inside, but I did not get home in time. So I'm just doing want to do this quickly and get this out of the way. And it's a way to still do the live stream, still honor my commitment to 3 live streams this weekend, live stream lecture, the Q&As from yesterday and Saturday. So, and yes, please follow us on social media. Let's see here. So, obviously Veterans Day, and I'll put up a background that's appropriate to it, is a holiday that is based in the war to end all wars, or the Great War, aka World War I. I consider it, and we consider it here at the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel, to be World War II, but it is one of the most popular 3-day weekend holidays in America, and it's one you probably don't know the origin story of, but it is based in one of the most bloody and awful conflicts in human history. And just a quick explanation about what the Great War was. Again, this live stream shouldn't last long, probably 10 minutes at max. But the Great War was basically a falling apart of a series of alliances created in Europe in the 20th century that could not continue the way they had been for such a long time. Starting in the after Napoleon was defeated by a coalition of European allies, the basic idea was that Europe would remain perfectly balanced on the continent, while European powers were free to create empires overseas. And this led to the creation of the French, German, Russian, and British empires, as well as the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And these empires, although extremely powerful, did not always see eye to eye, and were often competing with each other for as much influence, power, and wealth as they could in areas like Asia and Africa, which became the prime targets for colonization during the latter part of the 19th century. Eventually, a series of mutual defense pacts, and I'm picking a background right now, a series of mutual defense pacts were organized in which different Europeans aligned with other Europeans. And this is actually a great map that shows exactly what that's like. You've got the Central Powers in World War II. In fact, let me just turn around my screen so you can see this a little bit more, a little better. But you have Germany, Austria-Hungary, and eventually the Ottoman Turks. Originally it was Italy, but later on, let me see here. You have Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Turks, which will organize on one side of the Great War. Originally, Italy was part of this agreement, but later reneged on their promises and joined sides with France and Great Britain. France forms an alliance with Russia in the early 1880s, and later the British decide to kind of make better relations with France. Britain and France have been at odds with each other for a long time, and the United States, as an Angloid country founded by the British, settled by the British, despite a large German population. These alliances fall apart after Franz Ferdinand is killed at Sarajevo. Austria-Hungary had wanted to control as much of Serbia as possible. In 1911, they had taken over Bosnia. And Sarajevo is the capital of Bosnia, and it was a Serbian nationalist who, in Sarajevo, June 28, 1914, assassinated Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, throwing a monkey wrench in the plans of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and its leader, Franz Joseph I. Basically, what happens is, from there on, a domino effect happens where these alliances that have been building for decades fall apart. The Austro-Hungarians try to force the Serbians to do what they want. The Russians to back up the Serbian war with Austria-Hungary, but Germany before they can turn on Russia. This is the very beginnings of what comes to be known as the War to End All Wars, or World War I. They invade Belgium. Britain honors Belgian neutrality and so joins the war on the side of France and Russia. A year later, Italy, which had originally been allied with Germany and Austria-Hungary, decides to join forces with France and Great Britain against the Germans. So Italy actually joins the war. Later in 1914, the Ottoman Turks, seeking to regain some of their glory in the Balkans, southeastern Europe, joins Germany and Italy against Russia, France, and Great Britain. So the Middle East is brought into that routine, and eventually the British will use people like T.E. Lawrence and others and Arab rebels to destabilize the Middle East and destroy the Ottoman Turkish Empire. The Russians eventually are brought out of the war by their revolution. Eventually the Bolsheviks take over and a communist revolution ensues. Germany's continued use of unrestricted submarine warfare against American ships brings the United States into the war in 1917, and the Americans are able to offer fresh support to the British and the French, and this will allow them to overwhelm the Germans, who have been war-weary by British blockades, using their navy as always to dominate everybody else. And Germany surrenders, and eventually this leads to the Paris Peace Accords of 1918 and different treaties such as the Treaty of Versailles, in which Germany surrenders and France and Great Britain win. Now, what does this have to do with Armistice Day, aka Veterans Day? Well, I'm glad you asked. Veterans Day is a holiday that is based on the end of the First World War. I call it the Second World War, but a lot of people will call it the Great War, the War to End All Wars. On November 11th, 1918, German officers officially surrender on a train to French, British, and American officers, thus ending the fighting part of World War I or World War II, Great War, whatever you want to call it. Of course, back then they didn't consider it a world war until you got another world war. I would like to think that the First World War actually happens all the way back in the French-Indian War, 7 Years' War of the 1750s and 60s. So that's the basis of what was called Armistice Day, which was a celebration of the victory of the British, the French, and the Americans, the Allies as they were called, against the Central Powers of Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and of course the Ottoman Turks. Europe is restructured after this. The German Empire collapses. Austria-Hungary is broken up into many different countries, including Yugoslavia. The Ottoman Turks eventually fall apart, and the modern Middle Eastern states are created under guidance of the French and British empires, which are at their peak after this war. Italy doesn't gain much, and this eventually leads to the fascist takeover of Italy. Germany's frustration and economic downtroddenness following the war will eventually influence the rise of the Nazis. Russia's revolution will create the communist state. So the war has wide-reaching applications. Britain and France suffered mightily during the war, especially France. However, the United States, continually loaning supplies and resources to the Allies, becomes very wealthy, and you can see after the end of the Great War, the United States being the predominant power in the world. What happens next? So the celebration of the end of the war, usually with the laying on of roses at soldiers' graves, becomes a popular holiday and tradition in England and Great Britain throughout the 1920s and 30s, and this leads to the celebration of Armistice Day, which is basically a celebration of the end of the war. In the United States, this eventually takes on the form of Veterans Day, which I think isn't officially canonized until the 1960s, but is a celebration every November 11th, which calls back the end of the war and a celebration of American soldiers who have served in all wars, including the Great War, as well as the next World War and the rest of the wars in American history. But it's a day of remembering, of memorialization, and celebration of those who fought and served, either living or dead, past or present, in the American Army. Of course, it has a much more real effect for those in Europe who celebrate it with the Great War in mind. Of course, the United States lost over 100,000 men fighting in that war, as well as a bunch of other people. Anyways, I'm sorry it couldn't be a longer live stream today, or I couldn't take questions, but that's a quick rundown of why Veterans Day is indeed Armistice Day, a celebration of the war of the 1918, when they're considered to be the heroes or the good guys from then on out. Yes, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, I think it's from the Great War. And they did use poppies. The UK memorialized their soldiers laying down poppies, which are red, just like roses. In the United States, it was roses. But yes, thank you, Hars, for that. But yeah, just a quick rundown of what the Great War actually looked like and what happened in that war, and why Veterans Day is celebrated the way it is. Please check out my long-form video today at 5 p.m. Pacific time, which will cover the history of the Great War, and you guys can see why exactly Veterans Day is celebrated the way it is. Please like and subscribe on your way out. We have live stream lectures every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern and Q&As every every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Long-form videos drop every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we also have short-form videos every day. Really appreciate everybody. Well, I'm not covering the Pacific Theater because I'm only really looking at this, but China and Japan did fight in the war as well as Argentina, basically for the use of unrestricted submarine warfare. The Germans tick off a lot of people around the world who eventually joined forces with the Allies, Britain, France, Russia, and later the United States. This changes world politics in many ways, but it also changes the way people remember war and celebrate war. And if there's any war that really turns people's minds towards the horrors of war and how terrible it actually is, instead of glorifying it, it is indeed the Great War. And by the way, the Great War is where we get some of the most famous propaganda, including the "I Want You" of Uncle Sam poster comes from this war. One of the most famous wars in human history. We see trench warfare, mustard gas, and horror, and all sorts of terrible things used in this war that have huge implications for for how war is operated. The Geneva Convention eventually banned some of the techniques of the war, including the use of chemical mustard gas. Basically, all of the inventions of the Industrial Revolution are used by the Allies and the Central Powers to cause unspeakable amounts of harm and destruction following this war. So memorializing the soldiers from it is a huge part of European history, and eventually is applied to all wars in American history, and that's why we celebrate Veterans Day in the United States. So a quick rundown of that holiday. Check out the video later for more details about the Great War and the war to end all wars. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm sorry that it's a shorter live stream today, but good to see everybody as always. Please like and subscribe on your way out. And join us next Friday when we are doing our Q&A at 6 p.m. Eastern, followed by, although it might be a different time, Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then Sunday for our live stream lecture at 4 p.m. Eastern. I will be live Friday. It's not going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern. I have an appointment at that time, but should be about 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll be doing my usual Q&A where you can ask me anything you like about history and social studies. So please like on your way out. I hope you learned something. If you learned something, please consider liking this and subscribing. But I hope you all have a really wonderful Veterans Day and honor a veteran and learn a little bit about the Great War, which is the basis of Armistice Day, aka Veterans Day. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, love history. Bye-bye now, everybody. And thank you. Show some love to Harsonet, who moderated today. Really appreciate him as always. And you can follow us on the social medias that he pinned below. And as always, love history. Bye-bye.